My name is Marcus. I've been working the night shift at Mercy General for 6 months now. Most of it I've gotten used to. The sounds, the emptiness, the way the building feels different after midnight. Even some of the other stuff, the things they don't put in the job listing. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It started with my daughter's teeth. $4,200, that's what the estimate said. I'm sitting there in the dentist's office. Maya's in the chair getting x-rays, and this woman hands me a piece of paper and I just stared at it. Her bite's been messed up for a while. Headaches, trouble eating, and I knew fixing it wouldn't be cheap, but $4,200. I'd been out of work since January when the factory shut down. 11 years there, and then one day, gone. I was already behind on bills, scraping by on whatever work I could find, and now this. So I started looking for anything. Night shifts, weekends, didn't matter. Most of it was garbage pay or they weren't hiring. Then I found a posting for Mercy General Hospital. Night custodian, 11 to 7, 19 an hour. Full benefits after 30 days, medical, dental, everything. I called them that same day. The interview should have been my first warning. This HR woman, older, gray hair, thick glasses. She barely looked at my application. Didn't care about my work history or references. She just asked 3 questions. Can I work alone? Can I follow directions exactly? And do I scare easily? The last one threw me. I laughed a little and said no. She didn't laugh back, just looked at me for a second and said I was hired. Monday night, back entrance, 11 p.m. I should have asked what she meant, but I needed the work. Maya took it hard when I told her about the schedule. She's 10, she knew what it meant. No dad at night anymore. When I left for that first shift, she hugged me and wouldn't let go. I sat in my truck in the driveway after, feeling like garbage. But her appointment was in 45 days. Insurance kicked in at 30. I kept reminding myself of the math the whole drive over. Mercy General is old. 1940s old. Most of it looks like a regular hospital. But there's this wing attached to one side. Gray stone, narrow windows. The kind of building that should have been torn down decades ago. I parked in the back lot and just sat there for a minute, looking at it. Something about it felt wrong, but I couldn't tell you what exactly. There was a guy waiting by the service entrance. Carl, his name tag said. 60-something, hadn't shaved, and he was holding his car keys like he'd been ready to leave for hours. No introduction, no welcome. He just reached into his pocket, pulled out his laminated card, and handed it to me. 5 rules, typed on an actual typewriter. You could see the uneven letters. The card was soft at the edges from being handled by a lot of people before me. I started reading. 1. Ward C is on the 3rd floor, old wing. Mop it last. Never before 3 a.m. 2. If the elevator stops on the 4th floor and you didn't press the button, do not get off. Wait for the doors to close. 3. There's a woman who sits in the ER waiting area after midnight. If she asks about her husband, tell her he's still in surgery and the doctor says it'll be a while longer. Don't say anything else. Don't tell her the truth. 4. The basement morgue requires 2 people. If you're alone, skip it. If the lights flicker, leave immediately. 5. There are children in the old pediatric wing. If they ask you to play, say no. Be polite, but firm. I looked up and Carl was already halfway to his truck. I called after him, asked what any of this meant. He didn't turn around, just yelled back that I should follow the rules and I'd figure it out. Then he was gone. So there I was, alone in a parking lot with a laminated card full of rules about women in waiting rooms and children who want to play. I thought about leaving, getting back in my truck and finding something else, something that made sense, but the math kept running through my head. 30 days. 45 days, Maya's teeth. I put the card in my pocket and went inside. The hallway smelled like every hospital. Floor cleaner, recycled air, something underneath you can't quite name. I found the supply closet, grabbed a mop, and got to work. That's what I told myself to do. Just work. Keep your head down and don't think too hard about the card in your pocket. I lasted about 2 hours before I found out what the rules were for. By 1 in the morning, I started thinking maybe Carl was just messing with me. New guy hazing, you know? The hospital was quiet, normal quiet. just the hum of the lights and the occasional beep from somewhere down the hall. I was mopping my way through the ground floor, working east towards the ER wing, and nothing strange had happened. No mysterious women, no creepy children, just a building that needed cleaning. I was starting to feel stupid for being so jumpy about it. The ER waiting area is through a set of double doors past the registration desk. I pushed through with my mop bucket, and that's when I saw her. She was sitting in one of those plastic chairs they have in every hospital. Blue dress, the kind older women wear to church. Pearl earrings, though now that I think about it, she was only wearing one. The other ear was bare. Her hands were folded in her lap, real neat, and she had this little purse on the seat beside her, just sitting there, staring at the doors that lead back to the treatment rooms. At first I figured she was just a regular person, family member waiting on news, maybe fell asleep sitting up. It happens. I've seen people wait in rooms like this for hours. I started mopping around the edges of the room, keeping quiet so I wouldn't disturb her. That's when she looked up. "Pardon me." Her voice made me stop. It was polite, kind of formal, the way people used to talk. My grandmother had that same way of speaking. "Is my husband out of surgery yet?" My stomach dropped. The rule, third one on the card. There's a woman who sits in the ER waiting area. If she asks about her husband, tell her he's still in surgery, nothing else. I almost asked if she was okay. Almost asked if I could get her some water or call someone for her. That's what you do, right? Someone's been sitting in the hospital waiting room, you ask if they need anything. But something in me remembered Carl's face when he handed me that card. The way he wouldn't look at me. The way he ran to his truck. "Still in surgery, ma'am." My voice came out weird, kind of tight. "Doctor says it'll be a while longer." She nodded, real slow. "Thank you, I'll keep waiting." And then she turned back to the double doors, hands folded in her lap again, like I'd never been there at all. I backed up a few steps without really meaning to. Something felt off, but I couldn't figure out what. She seemed like a regular person just waiting for news. I got maybe 20 feet away before I noticed. She wasn't breathing. I stopped and watched her for a full minute. Her chest didn't move. Not even a little. Her shoulders were completely still. Most people, even when they're sitting quiet, you can see them breathe, the rise and fall. She didn't have that. And the dress she was wearing, it was old. Not old like worn out. Old like the style. The kind of thing my grandmother would have worn in photos from the 60s. Same with the earrings. I thought about my mom. When my dad had his heart attack, she sat in a waiting room just like this one. 6 hours before anyone came out to tell her anything. I was 17. I remember her face when the doctor finally walked through those doors. The way she stood up, hands shaking, hoping for news and terrified of it at the same time. This woman had that same look on her face. That desperate patience. Except my mom eventually got her answer. How long had this woman been sitting here? And what would have happened if I'd said something different? If I told her the truth, whatever the truth was? Would she have finally stopped waiting? Or would something worse have happened? I didn't know. I didn't want to find out. I finished mopping the edges of the room, staying as far from her as I could, and got out of there. The rest of that first night, I kept thinking about her. When I passed by the ER waiting area on my way out at 7 in the morning, I looked through the window in the door. She was still there, hadn't moved an inch, still staring at those double doors like her husband might walk through any minute. I stood there looking at her through the glass, thought about going back in and telling her something real, that he wasn't coming, that she could stop now, but I didn't know what that would do to her. And I had Maya to think about. 29 more days until the insurance kicked in. So I clocked out and drove home, watched my daughter eat breakfast before school, tried not to think about the woman in the blue dress who'd been waiting for news that was never going to come. I went back that night, and the night after that. By the second week, I had a routine. Avoid the ER waiting area after midnight. If you see Margaret, that's what I started calling her in my head. Say the line and keep moving. Don't think about it too hard. The job pays well, that's what matters. The pediatric wing was on my cleaning list. Old section, closed since '98. Second floor, east side, tucked behind a set of fire doors that squeaked when you pushed them open. One of the night nurses told me to mop it after 2 a.m., said the kids were calmer then. She didn't say why. One night I was running ahead of schedule, finished the first floor early, decided to knock out peds while I was at it. What difference could an hour make? That's when I heard the ball bouncing. Rubber on linoleum. That specific sound you remember from gym class. Rhythmic. Then it stopped. Giggling. Then footsteps, small ones, running. I pushed through the fire doors and froze. 4 kids, maybe 5, hard to count the way they kept moving. Playing tag in the hallway, darting between old gurneys and wheelchairs left against the wall. Hospital gowns, the kind with the ties in the back. One boy had a red rubber ball, kept bouncing it as he ran. One of the girls looked like Maya. Not exactly, but close enough. Same age, same dark hair and a ponytail. Same smile when she spotted me standing there in the doorway. She waved, asked if I wanted to play. My chest locked up. The rule. Carl's voice in my head. They'll ask you to play. Don't. Say you have to work. Be polite, but firm. I gripped the mop handle tighter, told her I couldn't, that I had to work. The words felt wrong coming out, like I was letting her down. She looked at me for a second, still smiling, but something behind it went deeper than disappointment, sadder than any kid should look. Then she nodded and ran back to her friends. I watched them play for another minute. The boy threw the ball to someone I couldn't quite see. The girl who looked like Maya tagged another kid and they both laughed. This pure, joyful sound that echoed off the walls and hung in the air long after it should have faded. They didn't know they were dead. That was the thing that got me. They were just kids playing in a hallway, waiting for someone to come get them, and nobody ever would. I backed out of the wing and finished my shift somewhere else. A few days later, I asked one of the night nurses about the pediatric wing. Older woman named Deborah had been here since the 80s. When I mentioned the children, her whole face changed. She told me about a maintenance guy back in 2003, Kenny. He played with them, hide and seek. They found him 3 days later in a supply closet. Heart just stopped. He was smiling when they found him. Big smile on his face, like he was happy. I didn't ask anything else. That night, 3 in the morning, middle of my shift, I called Maya. She answered on the 4th ring, groggy and annoyed. She asked why I was waking her up. I told her I just wanted to hear her voice. She told me I was weird, said goodnight, and the line went dead. I sat in the supply closet for a while after, phone in my hand. She was alive, growing up, complaining about her dad, waking her up at 3 a.m. like a normal kid with school in the morning, not stuck in a hallway forever, not waiting for someone to play with. I started leaving things for them after that. A rubber ball from the dollar store, a book of mazes from Goodwill, nothing big, just stuff I thought kids might like. By morning, it was always gone. I never saw them take it, but I kept doing it anyway. The children weren't the only ones I'd been avoiding. There was still the morgue on my cleaning list, basement level, end of the hall past the boiler room. I'd been finding reasons to skip it for 2 weeks. Around week 3, I ran out of excuses. Rule 4 said I needed 2 people. Wait for the security escort, never go alone. But it was 4 a.m. and the security guy was dealing with something on the 2nd floor. I radioed him twice, no answer. The morgue had been on my list for 3 nights running, and my supervisor was starting to notice. I figured how bad could it be? I knew the rules by now. The basement hall stretched ahead of me, pipes running along the ceiling. That low electrical hum you get from old fluorescent lights. The morgue was at the very end. Heavy steel door, small window reinforced with wire mesh. I pressed my face to the glass, couldn't see anything through it, just dark. The door was cold when I pushed it open, not just the handle, the whole door. Cold like it had been sitting in a freezer for days. Inside, 4 tables in a row, stainless steel, drains on the floor. The smell hit me first. Formaldehyde and something underneath it, something sweet and wrong that coated the back of my throat. 3 tables empty, the 4th had a sheet over it. The shape underneath it, unmistakable. Standard stuff, this was a hospital, people died here. I propped the door open with my mop bucket and started cleaning near the entrance. Kept my back to the wall, kept my eyes on the floor, tried not to think about that shape under the sheet. The only sound was my mop on the tile and that electrical hum. That's when the lights flickered. Just once. I stopped mid-stroke. Told myself it was the wiring. Old building, basement level, nothing to worry about. The lights flickered again. This time, they stayed off. 3 seconds. 4. 5. In the dark, I heard something. A wet sound, fabric sliding, then a thump, something hitting the floor. The lights came back on. The sheet was on the floor. The table was empty. My whole body went cold. I spun around looking for where it went. It was standing in the corner. 6 feet away. Gray skin pulled tight over the bones. Head tilted at an angle that wasn't right, like the neck had been broken and reset wrong. Its chest was open, not cut, but held open, fingers hooked under its own ribs, spreading the cavity wide. I could see inside, dark and wet and glistening. Its eyes were open, milky white, fixed on me. My legs wouldn't move. I tried to step back and nothing happened. Just stood there, mop handle slicking my grip, heart slamming so hard I could hear it in my ears. It tilted its head the other way, slow, like it was examining me. Then it smiled. I don't know how else to describe it. The jaw stretched open too wide, the lips pulling back from teeth that were too long, and there was a sound, this wet clicking sound from somewhere in its throat. It took a step toward me. That broke whatever was holding me in place. I ran. Down the hallway, mop clattering behind me, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The stairwell door was 30 feet away. 20. I could hear something behind me, not footsteps, something worse, a dragging, shuffling sound. Too fast. I looked back. It was right there, 10 feet behind me, moving in this jerky, wrong way, like something was wearing a body it didn't know how to use. Its chest was still held open, ribs splayed out, and inside, I swear I saw something moving, something that wasn't organs. I hit the stairwell door and it didn't open, jammed. I slammed my shoulder into it, once, twice. It gave. I took the stairs 3 at a time, grabbing the railing, nearly falling twice. Behind me, the basement door banged open so hard it cracked against the wall, that shuffling sound on the stairs getting closer. 2nd floor. I shoved through the door and it swung shut behind me. I backed up against the wall. Couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Silence. I waited. 30 seconds. A minute. Nothing came through that door. The security guard found me there maybe 20 minutes later, still pressed against the wall, hand shaking so bad I couldn't hold him still. He took one look at me and didn't ask what happened. He already knew. He told me I was lucky. Said the last guy who went down there alone back in '94, they found him the next morning on one of the tables. His chest marked up with dotted lines, autopsy tools laid out beside him, ready to be opened up and examined. But he'd walked in alive. The morgue has something in it, he said. Something that does its job, prepares the dead. Problem is, it doesn't always check first. Doesn't care if you're still breathing. And it needs privacy to work. That's why you need 2 people. That's why you run when the lights flicker. I asked him what would have happened if I hadn't made it to the stairs. He just looked at me, didn't say anything. After a while, he handed me a cigarette and told me to take the rest of the night off. I never went back to that basement alone, not once. Some rules aren't suggestions, they're the only thing between you and a table with drains in it. A few weeks after the morgue, I finally worked up the nerve to clean Ward C. Rule 1 said to do it after 3 a.m. I've been putting it off, finding excuses, letting other parts of my route run long so I'd have to skip it. But the supervisor was starting to ask questions, and I couldn't avoid it forever. 3rd floor, old wing, through a set of double doors with chains that were never actually locked. The chains were just for show, or maybe for warning. I pushed through at 3:15. Mop bucket squeaking behind me. The fire happened in '78. 14 patients died. Most of them never even saw the flames. The smoke got them first. They were sleeping when it started. Some of them never woke up at all. They were still there. I could see them in the hallway, wandering. Hospital gowns, some with edges still singed black. They moved slow, confused, trying door handles and calling out names I didn't recognize. One woman kept asking for her nurse. A younger man, maybe 30, hard to tell, stood by a window that hadn't been there in decades, looked out, and nothing. I started mopping near the entrance, staying quiet, trying not to disturb them. An old man shuffled past me and stopped. He was thin, bent over, one of those hospital gowns that never fit right hanging off his shoulders. His eyes were cloudy, unfocused, but when he looked at me, something in them sharpened, just for a second. He thanked me. Just a quiet word, almost a whisper, like I'd done something kind by being there. I didn't know what to say, told him he was welcome. He nodded, slow and careful, the way old people do when their bodies don't move like they used to. Then he asked me something I wasn't expecting. He asked me if his wife had come by yet. My chest went tight. I thought about Margaret sitting in the ER, waiting for news that was never going to come. I thought about my mom in that waiting room when my dad's heart gave out. I told him visiting hours were in the morning, that she'd probably be here soon. He smiled at that, this small, tired smile, like even smiling took effort. Then he shuffled past me, down the hall, looking for a room he was never going to find. I watched him go, then I finished mopping. They weren't scary, none of them were. They were just patients, lost in a fog, still waiting for someone to help them. The fire took everything from them, and they didn't even know it. They didn't know they were dead. They just knew they were sick and tired and waiting. My father died in a hospital. Not this one, but one like it. I was 17, sat in the hallway for hours while my mom talked to doctors, watching nurses walk past like it was just another Tuesday. Because for them it was. Another patient, another family getting bad news. The world doesn't stop because your world just ended. Hospitals are where people go to get better, or where they go to stop. Ward C was full of people who stopped. They deserved someone who'd mop around them without making them feel like they were in the way. Someone who'd tell an old man his wife was coming, even if she'd been buried 40 years ago. I started going back every night after that, not because I had to, because they needed someone, and maybe I needed them too. By month 3, the routine was everything. Clocked in at 11, mop the main hall first, avoid the ER waiting area until I had to pass through, say the line if Margaret asked, check on the children after 2, leave whatever I brought them, Ward C after 3, clock out at 7, drive home, sleep, do it again. I'd gotten good at not thinking about it too hard, but one night, I don't know why, I stopped. I was walking past the ER with a cup of coffee from the vending machine. Terrible stuff, burned and bitter, but it was hot. Margaret was sitting there, same as always, blue dress, pearl earrings, one missing, hands folded in her lap, purse beside her. 60 years. That's what one of the nurses had told me. 60 years she'd be sitting in that chair, waiting for news about a surgery that ended before I was born. I walked over and held out the cup. She glanced at it, then at me. Her face changed, surprise, maybe, or confusion. She told me she couldn't drink it. She said it like she was apologizing, like she was embarrassed to admit it. But she took it anyway, held it with both hands, the way you do when you're cold. Closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them again, she told me it was warm. Nothing else, just that it was warm. I sat down across from her, not close, just near enough to talk without raising my voice. She stared at me for a long time, really stared like she was trying to figure out what I wanted. I didn't want anything, I just didn't feel like mopping right then. After a while, she started talking. His name was Harold, she said. They'd been married 11 years. He had a bad heart, always had, but he was stubborn about doctors. Finally agreed to the surgery because she begged him. He kissed her goodbye that morning and told her not to worry. Said he'd be out before she knew it. She sat down to wait and she never got up again. I listened, didn't say anything. There wasn't anything to say. Then she asked if I thought he was okay. Her voice was quiet when she said it. She knew, deep down she had to know, but she couldn't stop. If she stopped waiting, it would be real, and she wasn't ready for it to be real. I told her I was sure he was doing fine. Same lie everyone had told her for 60 years. but the way I said it, I don't know, it felt different this time. Less like a script and more like something I meant. Like I was telling her it was okay to keep waiting, that someone understood why she couldn't leave. She reminded me of my mother. That quiet strength, the way she held herself together even when everything was falling apart. My mother died 5 years ago. I wasn't there. I was working a double at a factory trying to make rent. My sister called at 4 a.m. and told me she'd gone in her sleep. Peaceful, she said. But I wasn't there. I wasn't waiting for her. Margaret thanked me for the coffee. I told her she was welcome. Then I got up and finished my shift. The next night, I brought her another cup. She couldn't drink it, but she held it until it went cold, and she said thank you, same as before. I've been bringing her coffee ever since. I can't fix anything for her. Harold's gone. The truth won't help. Moving on isn't something I can give her. All I can do is sit with her sometimes, give her something warm to hold. My mother used to say that sometimes that's all you can do for someone. Just sit with them. Let them know they're not alone. It's not much, but it's something. And somewhere around then, I stopped thinking of this as just a job. Month 4, I made another mistake. I got uncomfortable again. The morgue had taught me to respect the rules, and I did, mostly. But after the coffee with Margaret, after Ward C started feeling less like a haunted wing and more like a place I belonged, I started letting my guard down. Started thinking maybe I understood this place. I was wrong. It was a Thursday night, around 1 a.m. I needed to get to the 3rd floor. Supply closet up there had the only working buffer, and the lobby floors needed polishing before the morning shift. The stairs were blocked. Water damage from a busted pipe. Maintenance had roped them off, so I took the elevator. I know the rule. If it stops on 4 and you didn't press the button, don't get off. Wait for the doors to close. I pressed 3. The elevator started moving. Then it stopped on 4. I didn't press 4. I know I didn't. The doors slid open. The 4th floor was supposed to be administrative offices. Old records, storage, stuff that hadn't been touched in years. But the hallway in front of me was dark. Not dim, dark. And at the far end, I could see light spilling out from under a door. Faint, yellowish, like an old surgical lamp. And I could hear something. Metal on metal. A wet sound underneath it. Steady, rhythmic, almost mechanical. Like someone working. Like someone cutting. I hit the closed door button. Nothing happened. The sounds kept going. Clinking, scraping. Then that wet noise. Something being pulled apart. Slowly. Deliberately. Then it stopped. The silence was worse. Something moved at the end of the hallway. A shape stepping out of the doorway. Backlit by that yellow light. Tall, shoulders too wide, head tilted at an angle like it was listening. I couldn't see the face. Couldn't see much of anything except the outline. And the hands. Long. Too long. Fingers that seemed to keep going past where fingers should stop. Dripping with something dark that pattered onto the floor. It turned toward me. My whole body locked up. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Just stood there watching it take a step forward. Then another. Not rushing. Moving slow, deliberate. Like it knew the doors wouldn't close in time. I hit the button again and again, slamming my palm against it. The shape kept coming, 20 feet away now. I could hear its breathing. Wet. Rattling. Wrong. 15 feet. I hit the button so hard the plastic cracked. 10 feet, close enough now that I could see something else. Its mouth was moving. Saying something I couldn't hear, or maybe I could hear it and my brain was refusing to understand. The doors finally closed. I sank against the back wall of the elevator, legs giving out. Rode down to the 1st floor and sat in the supply closet for half an hour, trying to get my hands to stop shaking. The next night, I asked one of the security guards about the 4th floor. Older guy, been here longer than anyone. He just looked at me for a second, then told me not to take the elevator alone after midnight. And if it stopped on 4, I didn't see anything. I wanted to ask what would happen if someone got off. His face told me not to. The surgeon, that's what I started calling him, was different from the others. Margaret was stuck. The children were stuck. The Ward C patients were stuck. They didn't choose to be here. They were just lost, confused, waiting for something that wasn't coming. But the surgeon knew exactly what he was. Whatever he was doing up there, he wasn't confused about it. Not everything in this hospital needed help. Some things were just dangerous. I never took the elevator alone after midnight again. And I stopped thinking I understood this place because I didn't. I just knew some of its rules. The rest, I was still learning. Month 6 now. The bills are paid. Maya got her braces last month. She hates them, but she'll thank me later. The insurance kicked in right on schedule. I've got a little savings for the first time in years. There's a posting on the board for day shift. Same pay grade, normal hours. I could transfer, put in the request tomorrow, and be home for dinner by next month. I haven't put in the request. I tell myself it's the money. Night differential adds up. $3 more an hour, that's groceries, gas, the difference between scraping by and breathing room. But that's not why I stay. The night shift needs someone. Someone who knows the rules. Who'll tell Margaret her husband's still in surgery and mean it. Someone to mop around the Ward C patients without making them feel like they're in the way. To leave a rubber ball for the children, even though they can't play with it. They're just patients. That's what I figured out somewhere around month 4. Dead or alive, there's still patients. Still people who ended up in a hospital and never got to leave. And every patient deserves someone who gives a damn. Maya asked me about my job last week. We were eating dinner, spaghetti, her favorite, and she wanted to know what I did all night. I thought about it for a second. Told her I take care of people who need help. She nodded like that made sense and went back to her pasta. Kids are like that. They don't need the whole story. They just need to know you're doing something that matters. The day shift keeps asking why I don't transfer. I don't have a good answer, or maybe I do and I just don't want to explain it. Someone's got to work the night shift. Someone's got to tell Margaret her husband's doing fine. Might as well be me. I've started adding to Carl's card little things I've learned that weren't on the original list. Rule 6. The 3rd floor bathroom door should always be closed. If it's open, close it, but don't look inside. Rule 7. Room 412 sometimes has a patient in it. If the light's on, knock first. Rule 8. The vending machine by the east stairwell gives change for people who died with coins in their pockets. Take it to the chapel and leave it in the collection box. Carl's card was just a start. There's always more to learn. Last night, the elevator stopped on 4 again. I wasn't even near it. I was mopping the 1st floor and I heard the ding from down the hall. I watched the numbers light up. 1, 2, 3, 4. It stayed there for a long time before it came back down. Empty when the doors opened, but the air that came out was cold, and it smelled like something I didn't want to name. Some things here want help. Some things here want something else. Someday, I'll hand my list to whoever comes after me. Tell them the same thing Carl told me. Follow the rules, and you'll figure it out. I hope they listen better than I did.